I'm joined today by the lovely author, Miss Angela Levin, who's written a beautiful book all about Prince Harry. So without further ado, let's talk to Angela. Angela, first of all, tell me, what was the most surprising thing through, meeting Prince Harry?
That's quite easy, actually. I was chatting to him at Kensington Palace, and he suddenly stopped in the middle of our conversation and said, "You know what I was really upset about, and that was being forced to walk behind my mother's coffin. And I don't think any child should have to do that. I was 12 and it shouldn't have happened, and I don't think that that would happen today." Now, I hadn't mentioned his mother because I hadn't gone into that, and I knew it was a very sensitive area. And I thought that that was incredibly poignant, as if it had been on the surface and he had to actually get it out. So I was very moved by that.
You would, yeah.
Yes.
And as you say, kind of throws you off a little bit. Do you think that was a deliberate thing to throw you off, or do you think it was just he was on his mind?
I think it must have been on his mind. I'd been following him for a year, and then I went for this chat. Royals don't do interviews, so we called it a chat, a conversation, hence the title of the book. And he just brought it out. And I thought that maybe he trusted me enough to tell me that. He wanted it out.
Yeah. How did the idea for the book come around originally? Was it something that you'd always sort of toyed with in your mind, that you wanted to do this? How did the whole thing come to you?
No, well, it started in 2015. I did a large feature for Newsweek magazine on the Duchess of Cornwall. And when I finished that, and that had worked brilliantly, the editor said to me, "Would you like to interview anyone else?" And I said, "Well, I'm fascinated by Prince Harry. I think he's changing from rebel to being really quite an exceptional man, because I've been watching royals forever. Even as a child, I've been fascinated by the British royal family. And so it took me 5 months to get the okay to go with him on one visit, follow him. And then I went on visits after that with him. And it took me over a year to get them to agree that I could see him for an interview. So it was a very slow burner, but worth every second.
I was going to say, and even though you're a respected journalist and an author, did you get nervous going into that? Because as you say, it's a long time building,
yes.
So you've got to get it right when you're there. So how, talk me through that day. You get
yes,
into,
I don't get nervous because I've done it a lot, as indeed have you, but I get total concentration because I have in my head what I'd like to ask, the time factor, how they might react to me. But it was eased a bit because having watched him for a year, I felt I could instinctively know what might work. And we sat down, and I didn't know how long I would have with him. They suggested 20 minutes, which is no time at all.
Nothing.
And I thought, I've got to make an impression. I can't ask about the weather or had he travelled far or any of those sort of royal questions. So I said to him, I've noticed that when we've been out and you've talked to people, that you are extraordinary with people who've been damaged in some way, either physically or psychologically. And I'd like to ask you whether this is one way in which you are giving yourself therapy. So as I said it, I knew I could get shown the door, he would walk out, and I just sat there, and there was a long silence, probably not more than a minute or so, but it felt like about 10 hours. And he said to me, "Wow, that's a big question." And then he went silent again, and then he said, "You're right, of course." And it absolutely broke the ice, and I was with him for quite a long time, and I felt I did it because it was worth the chance.
Yeah.
And I did it because I'd seen the way he'd talk to other people, and he has the most extraordinary knack of cracking through and saying something very, very appropriate and heartwarming to people who are damaged.
Did you then have more respect for him once you'd interviewed him and gone round with him? Did your perception of him as the prince change? Or,
I try and go with a blank sheet in my head because I don't think it's fair to have preconceptions.
Yeah.
But the first date we had together was to go to Nottingham, and we went to a community centre, and you have to go first as a journalist before the prince arrives. And I was asking all these troubled teenagers and young adults who'd been excluded from school, youth clubs, sports clubs, anything like that. And I said, "Oh, are you pleased Prince Harry's coming?" And they said, "Oh, who cares? You know, well, so what? Oh, big deal." And the guy who ran it said to me, "You wait," he said. "When he comes, it'll be like a light being switched on." And then he came. He comes like being shot out of a cannon, full of energy, full of enthusiasm. And he went up and chatted to them, you know, banging the guys on the back. And within 2 minutes, they were all crowding around him, smiling. Everyone wanted a selfie, which he did with them.
Which is so unroyal, Angela, isn't it? You know, what we remember, that's kind of unroyal behaviour, like selfies and clapping.
He's very accessible. He makes himself very accessible to these type of people. But if he's cross or something doesn't go the way he thinks, or it's not quick enough, he's really fast and wants to get things done quickly, he kept telling me, he can get quite tetchy.
Oh. And did you see of that tetchiness yourself?
Well, you'd see a shadow come over his face. If he was sitting around with bureaucrats and technical people and they would tell him figures and statistics and all that, you could see him sort of stifling a yawn or being not interested. But people who were wounded in the broadest sense, he could have been there for hours talking to them, really caring. And I think I hadn't expected him to be quite so caring, because you think a lot of the royals in their hidden tower, you know, they're not good in public because they're not used to meeting ordinary people. But Harry's fine. And he said to me several times, you know, "I want to be ordinary." But actually, he is extraordinary.
Isn't that, you know, it's a fascinating insight, that, isn't it, what you've given us? Because I know what you mean. You get this feeling that he's more down to earth than anybody, and that's the beauty of him, that he can connect straight away.
I think that's certainly one of the main reasons why he is incredibly popular, and why people can relate to him, because he has been damaged, you know, from a background where his parents hated each other or certainly didn't get on, and the death of his mother, and you know, the fact that he was very hard to trust anyone because he's royal, he doesn't know if they're going to sell it to a newspaper. So he's quite wary of people. He said he found it difficult to trust people, but he's overcome a lot of his issues, and I think people feel they can identify with him.
And do you, we must talk about the M question, Meghan, obviously. I mean, do you think he's changed because of her? Has it changed him as a person? I mean, obviously you're in love, so it does.
He said that he was very keen to get married, and he's very, very keen to have children. And he told me that he really wanted children, but, you know, there was a process to go to. You have to find the right person, and you have to be with them long enough so you know they're the right person. So I think his life was in the balance, and he wanted someone to share his load, really, and to be with him. And she's an incredible enthusiast. She's very strong-minded. She knows what she wants to support. But she's also got a mothering streak. And if you watched at the engagement, you know, she stroked his arm, she held his hand. And when at the interview, he said something about his mother jumping up and down, would be jumping up and down with enthusiasm. And she said, "Yes, she's with us," and stroked him, his arm. And I thought, well, you know, some people say all men like to have a mother in their partners, but certainly for somebody who'd lost their mother at 12, this was a lovely thing to have someone who would really care for you. And I think that's what you're saying, that's what's coming through. And do you know, obviously he had a couple of high-profile girlfriends, Cressida and Chelsea. You know, why do you think in your period with them, it didn't work for them? I mean, I think it was very clear. You know, I think they liked him very much. He might have been going through a sort of downtime because he suffered a lot from grief of his mother, which wasn't dealt with until, you know, 20 years after Diana died, where he sought therapeutic help. So he probably was difficult at times, but I think what they really couldn't bear was being in the spotlight. You know, all the protection officers around them and crowds and paparazzi. And I think that's one of the reasons why Prince Harry hasn't liked the press very much, because he's never alone. They're always there. They always want photographs of him. And on the other hand, with Chelsea, they met when they were very young. He met us while he was still at Eton at a party. They didn't get anywhere together at that time, but the relationship began then. And they both went their separate ways. And there was a long distance. You know, she was in South Africa and he was in London, all doing royal duties, and they crisscrossed and they tried to see each other. But I think in the end, she felt she couldn't take that royal life.
Yeah. And you know, I suppose the question that everybody asks is, you know, with Meghan being such a strong character, did you get the feeling with him throughout this and, you know, the way it's developed and stuff like that, that it will last? Or do you think that she would be, because the feeling is, of course, you know, in England, that she's an actress and it's a great role. And if you're not used to the royal family, as we know, it is a massive institution that you know, some people survive it. Some people don't.
Yeah,
Fergie didn't survive it. Diana didn't. Yeah. I mean,
but Kate Middleton has survived it perfectly. She's not really put a foot wrong.
What's the secret of her success then, do you think?
Kate?
Yeah.
Well, I think that she has devoted herself to helping William have a normal life and to have a private life. And I think that she has shown him how that is, which he didn't see. She's also got emotions and helped him be a father. He's very involved with his children. Prince Philip certainly wasn't involved with Charles, and Charles wasn't involved with William very much in terms of, you know, doing all the stuff that you need to do. You can see that Prince William is very happy with him because he holds his hand or he tugs at his trousers and he seems very relaxed, and no child of so little would put a front on to do that. So he's very used to his dad helping. And I think with Meghan that I don't think you can tell what's going to happen in anybody's marriage actually, and it depends how she copes with royal life and the restrictions. On the other hand, she was a philanthropist from a very young age. From the time she was in junior school, she used to collect old toys and clothes and take it to a school where there were deprived children. And so she's got that established within her for longer than people might imagine. And she can now do an awful lot of that, and that might be something that she loves very much. But I think it will probably be a bit tricky when all this, you know, first past the passion post, as it were. But I think she might like it. She might like all the advantages of it enormously.
Do you think now that Prince Harry, you know, he's come through a bit of a, shall we say, a dark time, you know, the Las Vegas period, shall we say, but he now seems a very strong, positive role model, and I think the bond between him and William is lovely to see, actually, as brothers. Did you get that feeling? I think he and William are extraordinary together. He told me that they've got better and better as they've got older, and that one of his roles for the future is to really help his brother. And they also have a unique bond in that they both understand where they're coming from, the dysfunction of the family, a mother who was so needy and would cry in front of them a lot, would bring lots of men home, and so they've had to work through that. They've had to work through the divorce. They've had to work through the fact that their father has married a woman who caused a lot of difficulties earlier on, and I think that they are really bound together because of that unique lifestyle that they have. But they seem to like Camilla, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure you've met her. I like Camilla. She's a very warm, engaging person. Yes,
I think Camilla's absolutely delightful, and I think now that they probably do, but they have been through the process, you know, and I think that has bound them because they have experienced it.
And do you think that now for both princes, I think we're seeing a resurgence in massive interest in the British royal family, and it is down to, I think, 3 people, now 4 possibly, Meghan, Kate, you know, William and Harry. They seem to have this new approachable spark. Yes. You know, our generation remember it being a little bit more removed, shall we say.
Yeah, well, I mean, Harry, again, he said to me that he wants to make a difference he doesn't want to just go and cut a ribbon, and which is why they want to cut down on the number of charities they support, because they want to pick and choose them so that they can research them and to be very useful. That's happening. Camilla is doing that. She has her own particular things, you know, abused women and so on like that. And I think the thing that they did on Heads Together, which was about mental health, was something that they've worked on for 2 years and has done amazingly well. I mean, one psychiatrist said what they've done in 2 weeks is more than I've been trying to do in 30 years. Opened it up, broken the taboo, that it's okay if you have these problems, you can get over them, you don't have to shy away and not seek help. And Harry very bravely put himself forward and talked about himself. Not so much, he told me that he controlled what he'd said. Good for him, really, that he didn't say what type of therapist he went to see, he didn't say exactly what he was suffering from, but just it was the anguish of his mother. And that was quite enough to create a very, very different atmosphere and environment, which is extraordinary. And you can't do that on... The Queen is still, even at 92, the head of over 600 charities. Now, you can't do too much. You can be a name on a letterhead, but they didn't want to be that. And Harry said, interestingly, considering he's marrying Meghan, that he doesn't want to be a celebrity with these things. He wants to be hardworking and involved. He doesn't want to turn into a celebrity.
That's you know, listening to you, Angela, I can see exactly how you extract this brilliant stuff out of people, because when you're talking then, I can see how Prince Harry would just open up to you. You've got a very open character. No, you are. You've got a very open sort of character. Was there anything that, you know, when you were sitting there, apart from when he said about, you know, his mother and stuff, were there things, because you don't want to give it away in the book too much because we want people to buy it for you, but were there elements where you think, I can't believe he's saying these things to me? Was it, you know,
well,
like
that one,
jaw-dropping
when it was behind the coffin.
Yeah.
Another one was when he said that, you know, no one wants to be king or queen. It's a duty. We do our duty.
Yeah.
That was another one. And that he had thought of leaving the royal family, and he went through the whole process of thinking about it and decided that he could actually work within it. Because he wanted to help the Queen, because she was transferring a lot of her work over to him. And when I came out, I leapt up in the air in Kensington High Street. I thought to myself, wow.
This is something, because it is historical, as you say, what you're saying about when, I remember when that, you know, he said, oh, who wants to be king or something, or queen or whatever. And, you know, you kind of think, well, that's your job, you know, but it might be the job, but they might not want to do it.
I think the reason for him specifically saying that was that he wants a private life. He feels that he's entitled to a private life as well. So he wants to go out on his duties, and then he wants more of a private life. William does too. They both agree on this. But you can't really. You are the country's property. Up to a big extent.
And you are a celebrity in this modern world,
you
aren't you?
are a celebrity. You can't avoid being a celebrity. It's like a sort of wonderful soap opera, isn't it?
Yeah.
But on a different level. It is, yes. I mean, one of the interesting things was, as I walked through the door to the living room, the lounge of Kensington Palace, which is obviously a visitor's living room, he said to me, are you watching The Crown on Netflix? You see, and he said, it's good, isn't it? And I could have kicked myself, because at the time I didn't have Netflix. So I said, well, actually, I haven't got it. He said, you must get it. He said, I just hope that they stop before they get to me, which was really funny. So I went home and got Netflix and looked at it and enjoyed it thoroughly. But you could see that it was, you know, a soap, but it was also, I had a lot of truth in it. So that the two combined, I could see why he liked it.
Yes. And obviously, knowing the true story, you'd be thinking, well, that's not true, or that didn't happen, or whatever. Do you know, when you finished your book, do you have to send a copy, or do you know if he's seen anything that you've written now?
No, I told him I was doing it, and the palace offered to fact check it for me. But I had to do it so quickly because I had one deadline, and then they got engaged, and I knew I had to get it out before the wedding. So I thought that it's not going to be a priority for them to put aside all the things for organising the wedding and to read this for facts. I wouldn't meet the deadline. So I have just done it myself and made sure, I hope, there's no wrong facts in it.
And will you send him a copy, do you think?
Yes, I'm going to send him a copy.
Wow, that's
It
nice.
comes out tomorrow, so I will send him a copy.
Do you know, I'm fascinated by it.
Perhaps he can read it on his honeymoon.
Can you imagine if he was pictured reading it as well?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the fact that you've got such... I think this is what I like about your book, genuinely like about it, Angela, is that you see these other books of, Meghan or Prince Harry, and nobody's got close. I'm only interested, as you know, as a journalist, you know that you're interested when the person sat opposite that person.
Yes.
You think they must have picked up something.
Well, they say it's sort of a friend said, or a close person said,
Yeah.
or someone who worked with him said. But I've got a lot in the book that Harry said to me, so it is special. I felt very honoured, actually, as well. When you say, what did I feel? I felt very honoured.
Yes.
And I felt very honoured that he'd opened up a bit.
Yeah. I think, and to me, this is, the royal book. I'm not just saying that. It's the book that I now want to sit down and read because talking
Viewers,
to you
do you
now.
hear this?
Yeah, no, but seriously, talking to you now, I think, well, yes, because I know you say you don't get nervous, but there is that element when you're there that you're trying to remember it all in your head.
Yes.
But you're sitting opposite one of the most famous faces in the world. So you do kind of think...
As you would know, timing is essential.
Yeah.
That you can ask somebody a question at one time, which would be inappropriate 5 minutes earlier, or you've lost the thread 5 minutes later. So you have to hang on to these things.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tape it. I wasn't allowed to do that. So I took notes and had to remember.
Gosh, that's where shorthand comes in.
Yes, I do shorthand.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The last of the people.
Yeah, I was going to say,
shorthand.
most people can't do that now,
Yeah.
Finally, I've got to ask you, Meghan, what do you think, having got so close now, do you think she's going to be a new Diana phenomena, or is it something that we won't see again? Is Diana a one-off, I suppose?
Well, I think everybody's a one-off, actually. And I think that she shouldn't try and be a Diana. I think she should try and be Meghan. Yes. I think she's got quite enough qualities to do that. And I think she's full of energy. She's full of enthusiasm. She's used to being incredibly busy. And I think that she will enthuse Harry. And she said as well, which was Harry would be delighted with, I know. He said to me that he loved being in the armed forces, as a soldier. And he said he learnt there to work as a team. And he doesn't think you can do anything unless you work as a team. And at the engagement interview, Meghan said she didn't mind about stopping acting because she was moving on. It's another stage. But what she's going to do is work as a team with Harry. And I thought, that'll go down very well.
Yeah. And that shows love, doesn't it?
It shows that she really cares, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Angela Levin, I could talk to you for hours. It's been really thrilling. And thank you so much for coming in to tell us all about your book.
Thank you for being so kind about it.
It's very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.